everyone, and thank you very much for joining us for another edition of Leveraging Artificial Intelligence for Organizational Strategy here on Armourgate Radio Communications. This beautiful third Monday of October 2025. It's such a joy, a delight, a pleasure, a privilege to have you with us. We are very grateful for the privilege of your presence. Have you been? Well, we're going to start like we always do by recapturing some highlights from last week's episode. But please note that there is a lot to be gained by, subscribing to Armourgate Radio Communications. There's such a rich bank and wealth of very strategic information that can enable you as an organization to move with speed, strategic speed. So last week we had looked at certain things that can enable us to leverage artificial intelligence for organizational strategy more optimally, right? We started by saying that the debate has been on about the extent to which artificial intelligence can replace humans. And of course, our position was that artificial intelligence cannot replace humans. It's not a case of either or, but both and. Artificial intelligence cannot replace humans, but neither can humans move optimally without artificial intelligence. Humans must learn to work with artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence is also going to be programmed, right? It's going to be optimized by humans, hence the word leveraging artificial intelligence for organizational strategy. Humans must learn to leverage artificial intelligence for organizational strategy. Artificial intelligence cannot do for humans what they have to do for themselves, but humans can do a whole lot more with artificial intelligence that they would do without artificial intelligence, right? We remember saying that you're not supposed to be deploying artificial intelligence in a manner you are supposed to be deploying artificial intelligence in a manner which enhances your strategic competitiveness and positions your institution for sustainability. I'll repeat that. You are supposed to be deploying artificial intelligence in a manner which enhances your strategic competitiveness and positions your institution for sustainability. And this is relevant because it's important to ask yourself as an organization, what are we doing to be competitive, to stay competitive, to be ahead of competition? And this is going to be a critical part of our conversation today, right? How exactly can we deploy artificial intelligence in a way that ensures that we are ahead of competition? And we say, but I'm not a private sector organization. How does this concern me? Well, it does concern you because strategy is not, the exclusive preserve of the private sector. It is a multi-sectoral enablement, right? Strategy enables you in the private sector to be competitive. It enables you in the public sector to be sustainable. It enables you even in the non-profit organization as a non-profit entity to be doing what you are doing as effectively as possible, right? So as a private sector organization, you're supposed to deploy artificial intelligence in a manner that enhances your strategic competitiveness. And as a public sector institution, you should also be deploying it in a manner that increases the chances of your sustainability. I remember speaking to senior members of a presidential initiative, and they were doing certain things and they had done it seemingly well, but from the data found out that the extent to which that those successes were sustainable was being questioned by the data, right? The interrogation was showing that though they made some progress in the last 3 years, when they measured the progress, there had been a degree of retrogression, right? So for you in the public sector organization, you have to be thinking of using artificial intelligence to ensure that there is sustainability to your effectiveness, right? And same thing for the private sector, by the way. So even the private sector should be attaining sustainable successes. That's also very, very important. Of course, the degree to which one is interested in sustainability and the type of sustainability that one is interested in may differ across sectors, right? But one thing is clear, you can and you should be leveraging artificial intelligence for effectiveness and sustainability. So again, we also looked at the issue of, strategy and insights. Let me put it that way. We said strategy normally comes from insights, while artificial intelligence can enable you to get that insights, right? In today's world of technology, there is massive information available. And we're still going to talk about that when we look at the thrust of today's program, right? The core of today's program. There's a whole lot more information available. massive data sets available, probably more than ever before, right? The cloud has enabled that. But again, you don't just need information, you also need insights, right? Technology generally can help you to amass information, but artificial intelligence can help you extricate insight from that information, right? And when technology does that, especially through artificial intelligence, help you to glean insights, right? Those insights will lead to or will enable more effective predictive analytics, right? So when we talk about analytics generally, it's about layering information, right? But artificial intelligence can help you to predict the future based on the hindsight you have gotten from what has happened before, right? So when you talk about the analytics from what has happened before, that helps you to, kind of look at the trends, talk about trends analysis, machine learning, uses that. In other words, the machine is learning from the trends, right? That's what I talk about machine learning. It learns from the trends analysis, and then it begins to do some predictive and prescriptive analytics. The predictive there helping you to forecast the market, forecast demand, and then the prescriptive there helping you to simulate different scenarios. Now, these are more within the ambit of artificial intelligence. So using artificial intelligence for predictive and prescriptive analytics helps to reduce decision latency. And we're going to talk a little more about that, right? Using artificial intelligence for predictive and prescriptive analytics helps to reduce your decision latency. Decision latency there refers to the degree to which information can be, outdated, if I can use that way. But not just this information in terms of decision latency, but also the decisions, right? If you make a decision, for instance, to enter a market while the market is still in an emerging phase, if you do not act promptly, or if by the time you have gotten that, if you have made the decision, the market is no longer in a emerging stage, you may have decision latency, right? You may be operating with information that is no longer current, right? So artificial intelligence can help you to reduce decision latency because artificial intelligence can process information more speedily than human intelligence. That's the truth. Now, human intelligence, of course, is required to prompt artificial intelligence in the direction in which it should be going. And we're going to talk a lot more about that today by God's grace. But you still need artificial intelligence to move with a certain level of speed. Machines can go at a significantly higher level of speed than humans, and that will help to reduce the risk of decision latency. Decision latency there meaning the risk of arriving at the market or trying to act on a decision when the decision may no longer be relevant for the current state of the market. So it's not enough to know that certain changes will occur. Artificial intelligence through predictive analytics can help you to anticipate changes, but you also need to know as an organization how you want to reposition yourself to respond to change. Very, very, very important. So it's not just about insight. We've talked about moving from information to insight, but now we're talking about moving from insights to timely decisions. I'm going to say that again. We've talked about moving from information to insight, but now we're talking about moving from insight to timely decisions. Decisions that are acted upon in a timely manner, in a manner that reduces the decision latency. These are some of the highlights from last week's episode. Please do well to catch up. Subscribe to Armourgate Radio Communications, invite your team, invite your leaders, invite those who are open to learning. There's such a rich bank of information from economics to geopolitics to strategy to leadership to institution building, even to public health. There's such a vast amount of information available for you on Armourgate Radio Communications. And we look forward to hearing back from you on what you learned, even have received questions from you on areas you want us to look further into. Now to the business of today. Right, we can't capture every single thing, but please go back and listen to what was shared last week. And as we go into the business of today, let me say that today we are going to be looking at artificial intelligence as a driver of competitive advantage the hybrid way. I repeat, artificial intelligence as a driver of competitive advantage the hybrid way. So what does this mean? Remember, we are talking about artificial intelligence ability to process high volume, high velocity and high variety data sets, massive amount of data sets, right? In those days, maybe 40 years ago, you will have to type in information and print it. In fact, maybe you couldn't even type it in 40, 50 years ago. Maybe in most organizations 40, 50 years ago, you probably type it on a paper and it's put in a file and it's put in a physical cabinet. But let's say about 30, 40 years ago, you could type it in a very big the computer, a desktop computer, and it'll be in a giant lab room, but at least we put it into some kind of soft form. Then later on, of course, you could type it in your laptop, but today maybe you don't even need to type it, right? Maybe today, a great deal, let me not say more, but a great deal of the information you need today is publicly available in the cloud. At most, you probably need to pay certain amounts of money, an exchange of value to access the data, but a lot of the information we need today is available on the cloud. Now, as much as this information is available, right, AI's ability to process this high volume, high velocity data, talking about the speed with which information is being updated and high variety data sets, actually helps you as an organization, helps you as a leader in an organization to do certain things. One, it helps you to identify the market trends. Very, very important. I remember what we said, you are trying to drive competitive advantage. What exactly is competitive advantage? I tried to allude to it, and I'm going to repeat it. As a competitive advantage is the advantage you have over your competitors, right? Competitive advantage is the advantage you have over your competitors. There's something I want to emphasize here. Sometimes when you are not careful as an organization or as a leader or somebody in a leadership position in an organization, you could think that artificial intelligence alone would give you competitive advantage. No, it doesn't happen that way. Artificial intelligence is simply like going to a farmer's market and then having access to tomatoes and peppers and onions, and going to the store, to the supermarket, and you also have different kinds of spices to go along with it. That is something that is available to every chef. So what makes you a star chef? The way you can walk to the farmer's market and get the onions and tomatoes and peppers, so can your competitors do that, right? The way you can get that high volume, high velocity, high variety data set, so can your competitors get that. So what makes you have the advantage? Just like the chef has a recipe that combines all of this, vegetables and peppers and onions and spices in a different manner, so does human intelligence play a role in programming the data sets that is available to everyone in a manner that gives you competitive advantage. As a matter of fact, from close to 20 years, over 15 years, and close to 20 years of leading organizational strategy in nations of the world, right? Teaching organizational strategy, having organizational strategy workshops, and helping organizations to differentiate themselves and leverage them, the market, use the leverage they have to create competitive advantage. After close to 2 decades of doing this, one of the things we can tell you is that many times organizations, right, those in leadership positions in organizations are falling under the illusion of thinking that they do not need human intelligence. Some, not all, some are falling under the illusion of thinking that they do not need human intelligence to cooperate with machines, right, to leverage artificial intelligence. If that is the case, if they think that they're going to rely completely on artificial intelligence, they simply need to ask themselves, what exactly can they access through artificial intelligence that their competition cannot? And once there's nothing they can access through artificial intelligence that their competitors cannot, then that alone will not suffice. It's like the ingredients in the market. That alone will not make you the star chef. It will not give you the competitive advantage as a chef. You have to have a recipe that others don't have, that combines the available information and gleans certain insights from the available information in a manner that others cannot. So again, we are looking at artificial intelligence as a driver of competitive advantage, and today we are looking at the hybrid way. You have to bring artificial intelligence together with human intelligence, right? And it begins by knowing that yes, artificial intelligence has the ability to process data at a significantly higher level of speed than the human intelligence on its own, right? But exactly what kind of processing is it doing would often, be determined from human intelligence. humans have to lead the machines, right? This is very critical. You have to program the algorithms. You have to impute the keywords, for instance. You have to impute, for instance, the outcomes that you're trying to get. You have to determine, for instance, the strategic direction. Sometimes we talk about the fact that artificial intelligence can give a sense of the strategic direction in which we should be going, and that is true. When artificial intelligence programs the massive amounts of data available, artificial intelligence can look at, for instance, the trends and say, oh, we are having a challenge with getting a certain generation to be involved in agriculture. Artificial intelligence can suggest that, we now have to be doing more of precision agriculture through technology to get the younger generation involved in it. Artificial intelligence can prompt that. That is true. Remember, artificial intelligence is about the ability of machines to behave in a human-like manner, to demonstrate human-like intelligence. However, sometimes humans have to completely lead the way. Sometimes humans have to feed a strategic direction into artificial intelligence tools, and artificial intelligence can then process the likelihood of that strategic direction being effective, being current, being responsive, and so on and so forth. Humans, for instance, can say, you know what, we want to try more intergenerational approaches to agriculture. We want to have the younger people teaching the older generation how to use technology for agriculture, and we also want to have the older people teaching the younger ones how to manage processes in a manner that they can now automate, because you still need to have a process before you automate. You don't automate nothing. If the process has to be more or less like created, then you can then use technology to automate the processes. So another strategic decider, a policymaker who is responsible for setting the policy direction or the strategy, will say, you know what, we want to have more intergenerational strategy. Let's now see what artificial intelligence has to say about intergenerational synergy in agricultural sectors, right? I remember about 20 years ago, this was 2005, exactly 20 years ago, I remember a lady who would later become the principal of a public secondary school in Lagos, Nigeria. I remember her saying, Tolu was the first person to teach me how to send an email. Right then, I was more digitally native than she was. By the way, this person is excellently digitally fluent today, and she does a lot of workshops and seminars and trainings and so on and so forth. But she will always say, Tolu was the first person to teach me how to send an email 20 years ago. But today, she does a lot. But how did that happen? A certain environment was created for that intergenerational synergy. I could teach her how to do that, and then in the process, she could also show me certain things about, the people, the process, the learnings that she had gotten, from decades of experience that she had then that I didn't have at that point. So sometimes humans still have to set the strategic direction. A nation may decide to set that strategic direction, and you can then use artificial intelligence, one, to test the veracity of your assumptions, because it's based on certain assumptions. For instance, that there is a culture for intergenerational synergy. What if the culture doesn't exist? Artificial intelligence can test the veracity of that assumption, and look, for this to work, for this model to work, certain things have to be in place. You can use artificial intelligence to more speedily, assess the veracity of those assumptions. Also look at the preconditions that should be available for the success of that hypothesis, because you're simply hypothesizing that this can work. Now, all of that testing can be done honestly much more efficiently, much more speedily by artificial intelligence. So remember, again, we're talking about AI as a driver of competitive advantage, and we are saying that the better way to go is the hybrid way. You don't want to use human intelligence alone, neither you want to use artificial intelligence alone. Artificial intelligence alone cannot give you the competitive advantage, because the same massive information that is available to you is equally available to all the competitors. You are going to need human intelligence to program that information, the data sets available, in a manner that is different from that of your competitors, and there comes your competitive advantage. So we've talked about that, the hybrid way. Number two, we've also talked about the speed, very important, the speed with which artificial intelligence can program information, can process information, even when you are giving the leadership as humans, right? The artificial intelligence can move, maybe because we human beings are susceptible to distractions. If you tell the machine to do one thing and you put the prompts in the machine, oftentimes the machine would not do any other thing but what you have programmed it to do. But we human beings, and that's a strength, it's not necessarily a weakness, right? Maybe that gives us flexibility, maybe that gives us autonomy, maybe that enables us to demonstrate more creativity, to discover more things in the process. So it's not necessarily a weakness, don't misunderstand me. But I'm saying that generally machines move at a much faster speed than human beings because they tend to go in the direction in which we have programmed them, right? So there is the place for collaboration between man and machines. Artificial intelligence as a driver of competitive advantage would often come the hybrid way when we are collaborating with machines. So to say, we created machines in the first instance, but we also collaborate with the machines we have created, and we continue to reprogram them based on new and emerging knowledge. My name remains Tolu Omodara of Armourgate Radio Communication. Very glad, very grateful, very delighted to be discussing this topic with you, and I'll be back shortly. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back shortly. Thank you for watching.
Armourgate, founded in 2008 out of a desire to build transgenerational structures for organizations, institutions, and nations. We have worked with large businesses, international development organizations, and public sector ministries and agencies. Armourgate, our uniqueness is that we do not just work for you, we work with you. For example, we do not leave you to the task after sourcing talent that will help the new hire settle into robust leadership development programs. We are technical experts in advising and supporting institutions on strategy and leadership, artificial intelligence, strategic human resource management, public sector reform, finance, audit and tax, FAT, and strategic communications. We do all this and more out of a desire to transform nations through institutions and organizations. For further inquiries, email contact@thearmourgate.org or call +234 810 999 6666, +234 807 957 4151, and +161 0504 6026. www.thearmourgate.org. Armourgate, building to endure and transforming nations through institutions and organizations.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for doing this with us on this beautiful last Monday, of October 2025, Monday, October 27, 2025. We are looking at artificial intelligence as a driver of competitive advantage, and we're focusing on the hybrid way, right? We've talked about the fact that artificial intelligence can process high volume, high variety, and high velocity data, right? But we've said that for that high volume, high variety, and high velocity data to become high value data, you often need it to be programmed by human intelligence in the direction of setting strategic insights, right? What exactly are the insights you are hoping to glean? Because again, artificial intelligence will only follow the prompts. Even when you talk about artificial intelligence ability to learn from trends, who created the trends in the first place, who put those trends there in the first place, right? But having said that, much as you create as humans, artificial intelligence has the ability to go in a much faster way, and that helps to reduce decision latency. What exactly is decision latency, right? Decision latency is the risk of implementing when the assumptions or the market basis on which you made that decision are no longer current, right? If you made a decision, for instance, based on the assumption that the market is for instance, working in a particular way because of the high level of instability in the Middle East, right? Let's say you made that decision, okay, based on this, we can continue to supply these, for instance, amount of medical products to the Middle East. Now that the circumstances have changed, right? Thankfully, they've been able to find some kind of a middle point in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine, and there's some peace in that area. Your decisions you have made on based on certain assumptions may no longer be accurate, right? So what does artificial intelligence do to help you get competitive advantage with regard to decision latency? Now, remember, we emphasize the fact that artificial intelligence has the ability to go at a significantly higher speed than human intelligence, especially after the direction has been set. Once you feed the machine with the data prompt, so to say, with the data processing prompt, the machine can go significantly faster. Now, once the machine goes significantly faster, it helps you get the advantage of speed. There's something called first mover advantage. Sometimes what gives you the competitive advantage is not exactly the fact that you're doing something very different, but the fact that you were the first to get there, right? That's what you call first mover advantage. If you don't have the speed of analysis, remember predictive analytics, getting that data probably faster than your competitors, you may not be able to gain the competitive advantage that comes with first mover spot. Very, very important, right? Number two, there's also the advantage of differentiation. We talked about the advantage of speed. Let's talk about the advantage of differentiation. Artificial intelligence has the ability to process information in a manner that, unearths patterns and associations and correlations that you may not be able to get through traditional analytical methods. I need to say that again. Traditional analytical methods may not give you the kind of pattern recognition and the kind of correlations that you would be able to identify or garner through artificial intelligence. What relevance does this have to competitive advantage? Well, in addition to speed, being the first to get to the market or getting there ahead of most of your competitors, being one of the first to get to the market, even if you're not exactly the first, being one of the first to get to the market. Another thing that gives you competitive advantage is differentiation. Very, very, very important. Because if you are providing exactly the same service or producing exactly the same products in exactly the same manner that your competitors are doing it, exactly how do you want to charge a premium? You cannot charge me a premium. It just becomes what economists call the perfectly competitive market, right? It's the same product at the same price at the same time in the same way. But for you to begin to approximate oligopoly or monopoly, where you can then charge high value prices because there is differentiation, it has to be that you are providing certain things that the customer needs in a manner that your competitors are not doing. That's when you either become part of an oligopoly where you have few suppliers and many buyers, or you become a complete monopoly sometimes, right? At the point, Apple was almost a monopoly because they had an understanding of the customer needs, even sometimes ahead of the customer themselves, right? So how does artificial intelligence help you to understand what the customer wants, the customer's preferences, by unlayering that information? Remember, there's a massive amount of information available today, right? You have the information is so massive that sometimes a significant part of electricity needs in communities and states and even nations are now connected to data centers, right? Data is the new oil, it's no longer petroleum. The data is now what powers, economic evolutions, national transformations, even regional trade. A lot is being powered by data, much more than ever before. Data is so critical that you are at a loss, honestly, if you are not taking data-driven decisions, right? But even these data-driven decisions, and this is where the hybrid way comes in, those data-driven decisions still have to be prompted by human intelligence. But once it is prompted by human intelligence, artificial intelligence can move at a much faster speed to uncover the correlations between demand and supply and pricing. And price is very important. That lets you know when you can begin to differentiate a certain product or a certain service to provide value-added services. Very important. Value-added services, VAS, that the customer is willing to pay a premium for. And once the customer is willing to pay that premium for the value-added services, then it is likely that you can charge a premium and then you can begin to gain competitive advantage. Let me give you an example of one or two organizations that have used this hybrid way, and then maybe we'll begin to wrap up for today. So there's a bank called Chase Bank in America. It's a bank that I like particularly because of the leader, JP Morgan Chase Bank. Is being led by Jamie Dimon. Jamie Dimon is such a respected figure in the business world in the United States that during the 2024 elections, I remember reading that both top candidates, then candidate Trump, now President Trump, and Vice President Kamala Harris wanted him on the economic team. Like, in other words, this is a bipartisan agreement that Jamie Dimon is an industry leader, right? So Jamie Dimon leads JP Morgan Chase Bank, and in 2024, JP Morgan Chase Bank deployed a hybrid AI human decision framework for doing risk management, right? For portfolio risk management. And Blooming Intelligence reported that this increased their forecast accuracy by 18%, almost 20%. Not artificial intelligence alone, not human intelligence alone, but a combination of artificial intelligence and human intelligence using advanced machine learning algorithms was able to increase the accuracy of their forecast, and they were able to improve their risk management by almost 20%. Very, very important. Remember when we said that the hybrid way is the way to increase your creative advantage, right? To increase your competitive advantage. Because as a customer, if I see that you are able to reduce the risk of me losing my investment gains through enhanced risk management, portfolio risk management, definitely I'm probably going to be willing to pay a premium just to increase the chances of safeguarding my investments. That's one example. Another example has been in the entertainment industry. In the entertainment industry, quite a number of platforms, right? I don't want to mention any name, but quite a number of platforms are set to increase their predictions that you would watch a particular movie or you would listen to a particular song, because they are increasing their forecast accuracy, and the more they do that, the higher their revenue will be, the higher their sales will be, the higher their revenue will be, and of course, the higher their profit would also be. So and this, by the way, let me re-emphasize that is not just artificial intelligence alone, right? This is not just human intelligence alone. This is the hybrid way. These examples I'm given is about the hybrid way, both human and artificial intelligence collaborating to increase chances of forecast accuracy, to whether for risk management or for predicting what the clients or the customer will want to either watch on an entertainment channel or an entertainment platform or listen to. And the more they do this, they are more likely to increase their sales and increase their revenue and eventually profits. Wow. I think we are going to call it a day at this point. And we're going to continue next week by God's grace. Remember, we have been looking at artificial intelligence as a driver of competitive advantage. We have emphasized the fact that you cannot outsource thinking, right? Artificial intelligence is not an excuse for intellectual indolence. Let me say that again. Artificial intelligence is not going to give you a platform for intellectual indolence. In other words, you cannot fail to think as a leader. It doesn't work that way. You still have to lead the way you think. You still have to determine the strategic direction in which you will go. Yes, artificial intelligence can suggest it sometimes using trend analysis, but even the initial trends are a product of human intelligence, right? What works best is when artificial intelligence is collaborating with human intelligence, and especially when human intelligence is taking the leadership, is leading the way, and then artificial intelligence and human intelligence are cooperating to bring optimal outcomes, optimal strategic outcomes. So the first thing to note is that yes, artificial intelligence has the capacity to process information much more speedily, but the direction of the processing it has to be indicated by human intelligence, right? As much as possible, you have to prompt the artificial intelligence tools in the direction in which it's going to head, right? Number two, we also talked about decision latency. That has to do with speed. That's a source of competitive advantage. The first mover advantage, or one of the first mover advantages, that comes from artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has the ability to process information at a significantly higher speed than humans, right? So once you can prompt the machines can process the data and bring the insights you need for decision more speedily. And if you can cooperate with that speed and collaborate with that speed as a human, you are more likely to have the competitive advantage which comes through speed to market. Very important. And number 3, we also talked about differentiation, very, very important. Product differentiation, service differentiation, customer differentiation. All of these tend to come by understanding the market, understanding the customer, or layering the information, insights that you need to dig deep and really know who you are dealing with. Because sometimes customers have preferences that they cannot even articulate. Artificial intelligence is now able to process the massive data set to uncover correlations and associations between data sets that can help you have a deeper understanding of unique customer requirements. That way, you can provide differentiated products and services. And once you can differentiate products and services, then you're more likely to be able to charge a premium. Otherwise, it will just be a perfectly competitive market where you have many buyers and many sellers, and you essentially be charging the same price. Well, this is where we're going to enjoy cutting on today's edition of the program. Remember, at Armourgate, we are very, very willing, able, and excitedly looking forward to cooperating with you to articulate your strategy needs, to review your strategies. That time of the year where you should be getting closer to reviewing the strategic plan you had for the year, setting the next one for the next year. We are also able to train your senior management and even middle level management across the nations of the world, from the Middle East to Europe to America, Asia, wherever you want to go. We are ready to take your teams there to have working programs, not just to teach them in organizational strategy and how to use artificial intelligence to enhance organizational strategy, but to also work with them. So we're able to train them in a workshop-like manner, in a hands-on manner, in a manner that by the time they come back to the organizations from these trainings, they will essentially be proceeding with strategies that were developed during the course of the training. We look forward to partnering with you to strengthen your organizational strategy capabilities, to strengthen the abilities of your management, your top and middle level management, to think artificial intelligence, to think the hybrid way, to think about creating, competitive advantage and enhancing their competitive advantage through the leveraging of artificial intelligence. We look forward to collaborating with you. Please check out our website, www.thearmourgate.org. Send us an email, contact@thearmourgate.org. Our WhatsApp number, one of it is +1 610 504 6026. You can also reach us on our local phone numbers, all available on www.armourgate.org. We look forward to partnering with you because there's so much more to be done than you have currently done. Believe me, the sky is still very, very blue. Well, on this note, we call it a day for this edition of the program. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you. We look forward to hearing back from you. We look forward to receiving your feedback. And most importantly, we look forward to collaborating with you. Until I see you same time, same station next week by God's grace. Remember, think strategy, think competitive advantage, and think artificial intelligence for reduced decision latency, increased product and service differentiation, and ultimately enhanced competitive advantage. I'll see you same time, same station next week by God's grace. But today, take care of yourself and remember there will be other great programs from tomorrow. My colleagues continuing tomorrow all the way till Friday. And you might subscribe to Armourgate Radio Communication. I'll see you same time, same station next week. Until then, take care of yourselves and have a good day.